That's for you. Where's the camera? Right there. Do we need some?
You don't have to. You should look at your mouth. But I need to look at your camera right now. So, hi everyone. I'm Christina Joy. Welcome to Sankofa Video Books and Cafe here in Washington D.C. We're gonna get started in a couple minutes with Rhymes Black Boy, hosted by Combined Rhymes. And yeah, like just hang tight really quick. Oh, right, yeah. So, Brandon is there behind you on the screen.
Our brother.
Can hear you.
Should I turn the screen around?
Where's Brennan? Where you at?
I'm in Memphis, Tennessee.
Hey!
Oh, okay. How's everything going down there?
It's been a crazy couple months, but we are on the up now.
Yes, I am. You couldn't tell by the yeah.
That's what we reminded.
How you brothers doing?
Doing okay.
All right.
Good.
On like Sankofa's Facebook.
Yeah.
Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah. Somebody will help you when if you do something. Somebody.
Two. Worse. I would never teach how.
Oh, I see what you. Oh, I know.
They gotta come to class.
Oh, so you
when
mean
you take something.
on that one?
Mm-hmm.
So, what you just.
How many you get
Oh,
read?
it's
And 2 games.
yeah, what you just have to turn it around. Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah, that's right. Huh?
The camera's gonna turn.
Yeah, exactly. So then you just turn this around. So then they can see him.
The same thing.
You gotta do it real. You know.
I know the concept is kind of funny. So just switch cameras.
It's 4 or 10.
Yeah, switch to the front camera.
I mean, it's right.
It was doing this just a second ago. It worked though. After I tapped it.
The way there we go. Yeah.
Okay. You got it. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. That just comes it down. Yeah. Yeah, that's all. Good.
Okay. Brandon is facing you guys now, so you don't have to turn around and look at him. His face.
I can see you now. Of course, after we got off, we couldn't be trying to beat each other. We fall apart in a second. And it's got this special sense of joining forces. Is it on? Stacy told me a couple of weeks ago, she has been through all over because she was a classified in the psychology. She said that's the whole issue. I said we started. We got hot mics.
Yeah, these mics are
And the street. They're all hot. And in the street.
Hello? Microphone at work. Check 2 at work.
You're back.
Okay.
Okay.
He came yesterday.
Yeah. Me all the time.
But I remember you mentioned the event today.
Yes.
Yesterday. All right, peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome to Sankofa Video Books and Cafe. No, we got started a few minutes after the hour, but that's fine because it did allow a few more people to come into the room and they didn't have to miss anything. And we're happy for those who are joining online, those who are joining in person, and those who will be viewing this recording at a later date. We have a pretty intimate crowd here, so we can definitely get into some good discussions this evening. So my name is Kamal Grimes. I do go by Kamal Malik on like social media. Malik is my middle name, so Kamal Malik or Kamal Grimes will do. I work here at Sankofa and I have been for the last 3 years in the bookstore. I'm doing in various capacities, and also I'm a graduate of Howard University's African Studies Department in 2019 with my master's degree. So definitely a part of the community and been here for a while, been coming to Sankofa for the last 10 years. And I worked here 1 year back like in 2016, then I came back in the pandemic. So I've been working here for 4 years. But just 1 year was separated. So Sankofa is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm very happy to be here and to share this space with you. When Christina, who you normally see hosting most of these events, you know, she came to me months ago and asked, can I host an event like this? And at first I was a bit hesitant. I didn't really necessarily want to host the event myself. And she kept saying, "Oh, it's hosted by you." I'm like, I'm just a facilitator. I'm just a brother that's working with other brothers. Like, that's the way I look at it. But when you break it down, I am, hosting the event. So I'm happy to be here. Sometimes the brothers need a little push from the sisters to do things, especially like this. So happy for you all to have me. And let's get into it. So the title of today's event is Thrive Black Boy, Nurturing the Mental Health of Black Male Adolescents. Okay. And here we have two distinguished professors from Morgan State University in the Department of Urban Research, the Institute for Urban Research. Yes, and we have a good brother, Brennan, who is joining us from Memphis, Tennessee. Right? Okay. Yeah. So, we are virtual and we are live and we are global, universal. So, I didn't get a chance. I actually brought the bios here, but I meant to open my computer before starting the event. So just bear with me for about 3 seconds. I do want you all to get an opportunity to hear. Okay, I won't read the whole thing. I'll sum it up. I'll sum it up. Well, I got it from Morgan State University website. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Well, we call them bios, but it's just a short description. So we'll start with. And I didn't have a bio for you, Brennan, but I do have the back of your book. So actually, let's start with Brennan since this is the shortest. So, Brennan Steele is a believer, educator, and a writer currently residing in Memphis, Tennessee. Through his own process of healing, he has become passionate about the mental and emotional health of Black boys and men. And he is the author of Breathe, a guided healing journal for Black men, which I was looking through it earlier today, and I thought it was amazing. And I'm definitely going to get a copy at the end of the night. But yes, Brennan Allen Steele is the founder of the movement #Breathe Brother. And breathing is a revolutionary act, as he said, and we will get into what that really means when we get into the meat of discussion. Next, I want to introduce Dr. Raymond Wimbush, immediately to my left. He is the director and a research professor at the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University, which is right there in Baltimore, another historically Black college and university. Ray is a research professor and the director of the Institute for Urban Research. As a scholar and an activist, he is known for his systems thinking approaches to understanding the impact of racism, white supremacy on the global African community. His writings, consultations, and research have been instrumental in understanding developmental stages in Black males, public policy, and its connection to compensatory justice, relationships between Black males and females, infusion of African studies into school curricula, which is my personal interest, and the impact of hip-hop culture on the contemporary American landscape. And he's taught at several universities for over 40 years and established various foundations here in the States and across the world. And now I will get into Dr. Jeff Menzies' bio. Okay. All right. Dr. Jeff Menzies is an associate professor at the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University. He is a graduate of both Fisk and Howard Universities, receiving advanced training and degrees in clinical psychology. And as a former director of the Academic Success Center at Fisk, Menzies' responsibilities included directorship of the Campus Counseling Center, Student Disability Services, and the HBCU Wellness Project. And he's provided clinical trainings for various organizations, corporate and private and public, grassroots. And he's done work with the Ministries of Education in St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as Gambia, the West African Examination Council, and Oxford Roundtable in England. So very international. We have He's author of several books. Same with Dr. Menzies. Same with Dr. Wimbush, also author of many, many books. We have a few of their books here today, and we're going to get into the discussion. So join with me and let's give a round of applause for our distinguished guests today. All right, let's get started. So I just have a question for each one of the panelists to answer. We're going to start with a definition of terms. We're going to have a discussion about thrive, Black boy. Well, what does it mean to thrive? What does it mean to be Black? And what is a boy? And so let's just start with that. So let's start with Dr. Wimbush, and then we can go to Dr. Menzies, and then Brother Brennan Steele.
So is this, okay, maybe we should start with the hardest one, it seems now, is what is a boy? Because increasingly it's becoming hard to decide what is a boy. I was looking at a show last night, Jeff, maybe I better not get into that, but a boy is a male child, is in my definition, and I know that's being challenged increasingly now, and I don't want to get into that, but and thriving is, in my definition, for a Black boy, is a child that can do anything he wants to do. That he's not restrained, by, what racism, white supremacy imposes upon Black boys. He can walk down the street at night, he can walk down the street in the daytime. He can go to whatever college he wants if he wants to do that and get a job wherever he wants. And what was the third one?
What does it mean to be Black?
Well, I'm a nationalist, so it means the color of my skin. And I know a lot of people start saying things like being Black is in your head, so they would say Clarence Thomas is not Black. But Clarence Thomas is Black in my definition. Otherwise, we kind of give away what it means to be Black or African. There was a group years ago, you probably remember, they were all white boys and they were called the Young Black Teenagers. So, you don't want to give that away. So to me, as a person that's from African descent, that is the color of my skin.
All right, thriving to me is going beyond average, going beyond mediocrity, and excelling in the things that you do on all fronts. So you can thrive. I think you can thrive in both positive and negative things. You can be thriving. You can be a thriving hustler, and going beyond the average, going beyond mediocrity. And I find that typically Black people, going into that definition, people of African descent, we typically thrive at whatever it is that we're engaged in. And Jay-Z got one of my favorite quotes from Jay-Z is from American Dreaming on the American Gangster album. He says, "Forgive me, Mama, I should be thinking about Harvard, but that's too far away. And niggas is starving. Nothing wrong with the aim, just got to change the target." So he's saying that no matter what we're shooting at, we hit it every time. So we just got to switch what that target is so we can start thriving in these other areas. Last point about a boy, that's real basic with me too. Just like what Dr. Wimber said, it's a male child. Without jumping through the loops about what actually is a male, and I'm talking genetically male child.
Ashe. All right, Brother Brennan. What thriving? What does it mean to be Black, and what does it mean to be a boy in any order?
Yeah, I'll say that for Thrive, I agree with Dr. Wimbush, and I thought about like this freedom and carefree ability to kind of operate throughout the world and the society that you're in. And I also thought about the ability to dream as a definition for Thrive. In terms of Black, I think globally, I think it's people who are part of the African diaspora, but I also think specifically in our country, it's like being someone of African descent that has the experiences that come along with it in America. I think often of like the one drop rule when I think about that as well. Even though you might have a different, several different parts of you. If your red is black, then I think that that's part of your experience. And then, yeah, I'll add to. I won't add anything to the boy definition. I agree with the professors of a male child.
All right, now that we got that out the way and we have a definition of terms, we're all working from a common understanding. At least we have an understanding of the presenter's understanding, and we can move forward from there. So let's get into now, Brennan. I'm gonna take my first two questions actually directly from your book, and I believe it was day 2 in the in your guided journal. So that's one thing about this book here is it's actually a guided journal, and I thought it was really beautiful because in the beginning you mentioned that oftentimes it's hard to vocalize, what we feel, especially as Black men. But journaling could be the beginning of you getting those ideas, those emotions that are inside of you, outside in a constructive way. So he had 2 questions, and he says, what does it mean to you to be a Black man? Now we're getting into the discussion of man. And where or from whom did you learn how to be a Black man? I thought those were 2 very powerful questions. So let's start in the same order. Dr. Wimbush, what does it mean to you to be a Black man?
Well, to me, I borrowed from Wade Knowles, a Black psychologist, and he uses the term Jegna. And a Jegna is somebody who knows everything, or well, not everything, but is deep in his community, will protect his community, and is willing to die for his community. That's what a man is, as far as I'm concerned. I think that, to be a Black man is somebody who takes care of things and imparts wisdom. In my case, it was my father. He was a man, and he took care of us in times that it was hard for Black men to take care of their families. He had 5 kids, and I don't want to get into biography or anything like that, but it was, I think that being a Black man in America is fundamentally different from being a Black man prior to Africa, the rape of Africa, 500 years ago. We can get into that later.
What does it mean to me to be a Black man? A lot. I mean, he's like, it's so open-ended, you know what I mean? It's like, he's pick anywhere to jump in. And so my answer definitely isn't going to be all conclusive for what I think it is to be a Black man, for sure. But part of it is, a fully capable and functioning member of our community, designed to help fill in the gaps, help where there's help needed, to develop myself to the best of my ability, to the peak of my potential, in order to pour back into my community, to hold up the legacy of my ancestors without apology, and to be that beacon for any and everybody who's paying attention to me, no matter where they are, who they are. As far as who taught me to be a Black man, I'm gonna sound kind of like Mr. Fuller on this one, Doc, but any and everybody that I've ever encountered as I've been growing into a Black man has helped me to become a Black man, the Black man that I am anyway. And it's just because whether it's a direct lesson like Dr. Wimbush, when I came to Fisk, he's one of my teachers here. I took my first psychology class with Dr. Wimbush. Oh, wow. As an undergrad, yeah. And, I came in from Cincinnati, semi-street. What the street is a street, but I was street enough. There's knowing that had I stayed home and not gone to college, I'd probably be dead or in jail. I bet money on that. But he taught me a lot about being a man. It wasn't until I saw the Warrior Method, his book, that I realized, the process that I was actually going through, formally or informally. From trusting me to go pick up some of the VIP guests that were coming to campus, John Conyers, Dorothy Height, Fred Price, Chuck D, Archbishop Tutu. It didn't matter who was coming. First it was in this green Benz, the little green Benz, and then was a Forerunner after that. Right. And then a Forerunner, we throw me the keys, and then if we rented vehicles to do transportation, I was the one doing it. So he really instilled that trust, and then it also gave me a sense of deep responsibility I started to understand, like, yo, you living for more than yourself, and what you thought was your purpose might not actually be it, you know, because look, take a breath and look around at the people that you are responsible for bringing to and from the campus right now. And then, like, when I brought Bishop Tutu in, I think that's what sealed it, because I wheeled him into the chapel, and the chapel was full, top to bottom. And as we got in there, everybody stood to their feet and were applauding. You know, so I'm adjacent to the one that they're applauding, like literally wheeling him in. So I felt all of that energy, and it was like, wow, okay, so this is who I was responsible for actually bringing into this space, and this is all that was waiting on him. You know, so it kind of sealed it for me. But the long answer, but short of it is that everybody I've ever engaged and encountered, some people more specifically, my stepfather, he taught me a lot of what to do and what not to do. I remember one time me and my boys were sitting on the porch. He came out there, he said, man, I done did enough time for all of y'all. He said, man, one of y'all got no business going to jail. So I gave him some dap. I said, I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate you for taking my sentence for me, you know, because what he was saying was very prophetic. Because it was like, you know, y'all ain't got no business going. I took that time for y'all. You know, he said he might have been buzzing off some radio or something at the time, who knows, but it was a truthful statement. So people like that in my life, you know, Dr. Wimbush, maybe the young brothers, God's son, nephew now out here, you know, do it for them.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a full circle story for you brothers. We'll get into that later. That's a beautiful story from professor and student to actually in the same department at the same university together. That's a beautiful. Let's clap it up for that, actually. And then, Brother Brennan, for you, what does it mean to be a Black man, and who taught you, or where did you learn that from?
Yeah, similarly, I think that it is a broad question, and I wrote the question broad intentionally, just to see kind of where whoever wrote it or came to the journal, wherever they were currently. And so I'll answer it kind of thinking about the space I was in when I wrote it. And I think that being a Black man is kind of like being at the, I guess, crossroads of their two identities of being a man, but then specifically a Black man. When I think about what society expects from men in terms of the way in which we display our emotions, the way in which we relate to others, there is an expectation that we don't have emotion. There's expected that we don't show weakness, and I think that extends to Black manhood as well. But I think that then when you express emotion specifically as a Black man, then you're deemed as threatening. When you express that anger as a Black man, you're deemed as threatening. And so I think for me, being a Black man is kind of being in the two, in between the two identities, or the parts of your identity and how they intersect. And I think that I learned that from, my dad, the Black men in my life, but I learned it from similarly, like just pretty much anyone I came in contact with, the ways in which they interacted with me as a Black boy and in Black man as I grew up. I think about the saying that having two strikes against you, one being Black, two being a Black man. And so I think that, that's kind of where I was when I was writing those questions. And so, that's how I answer today.
Yes, please.
You know, I was thinking, listening to Jeff and Brennan, that, you know, I want to pick on somebody. Is Clarence Thomas a Black man? You know, and I know and so I was thinking about that, especially when Jeff was talking. To me, there's got to be some kind of consciousness about being an African if you're a real Black man, that you got to know something. So I don't know I know Clarence Thomas is a Black man, but he's not a definition that I would use. I would use him as a definition. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. I don't think you have any pushback on that one. I did want to, kind of combine the first question and the second question. So the title of this event is Thrive Black Boy. And then I asked the question, what does it mean to be a Black man? So I'm going to combine the two and say, what does it take for a Black boy to become a Black man? And what are some of the challenges facing Black boys into becoming, fully functional Black men?
mean, the basic answer is to survive. You know, that's number one. A black boy has to survive in order to become a black man. And that's going to be based upon where they're trying to survive, what their environment is, what they're living through, what their experiences are. So to me, that's the basic part of it. You know, you got to figure out how are we going to survive and navigate these environments that we find ourselves in. I just did a workshop this past weekend called Surviving the Encounter. I was teaching practical tips about how to negotiate traffic stops. You know, because it's very important and it's some very basic, like, pieces of information, but it's stuff we don't think about. You see the lights come on, turn your hazard lights on immediately. You know, that sends a message. I see you, and if I keep driving slowly, I'm not evading. So don't get all anxious, start getting mad, you know, every second that I didn't pull over immediately. I'm trying to find a place. Safety for both of us. Turn on your interior lights if it's nighttime. Why? So they ain't got to be wondering what's going on there. So a lot of times people say, well, you don't have to hold their hand. You shouldn't have to. Maybe you shouldn't. But it'd be a fool to spit in the face of wise counsel like that at the same time, because it's about surviving. So that's one of the basic things. The boys got to survive to be men. And then there's so many different parts of life to negotiate and navigate, you know, relationships. You know, we got to teach our young brothers how to deal with young sisters, you know, how to grow into men. And then I'm with you, Doc, on that question about, as you were saying that about Clarence Thomas, I kept thinking, okay, so then I think this needs a qualifier. What type of black man are we talking about? You know, because it's like there are different types of black men, because you just have to be an adult male, black male to be a black man by basic definition. Then you start qualifying with it. You're this type, and you're that type. Like Doc said, he was a nationalist earlier. You know, so you can expect certain things from Doc as a nationalist. And so we got a brother growing up in the hood, survival strategies. You know, how do you survive in the hood to become a black man? And then what type of black man do you want to be? That's another question that our boys can be asked. Because then that puts in their head, oh wow, so you mean to tell me that there are different types of black men? Even though they've seen them and experienced them, they may not have ever thought it like that and say, oh, so I can actually control my own destiny or what type I'm going to become? Yeah, it's all types. And so I think those few things are very, very important in that process of going from being a boy to a man. But number one is you got to survive to do it.
Brennan, why don't you go?
Yeah, I think I agree with what's been said. The word that came to my mind was awareness. I think an awareness of self. So awareness of like how you show up, awareness of who you are, and similarly the type of black man that you want to be. I've been in education for 5 years. I taught all black boys my first 2 years, and now I still teach at a predominantly black school it's co-ed. But something that I talk to my boys a lot about is especially this generation, there's like maybe 3 types of black men that they see. They see rappers, sports players, and then they see the guys in their neighborhood. And so I think that like allowing them to be like, there's other types even outside of those, and that awareness of kind of where they want to kind of take their direction, but then also awareness of how you are responding to things and how that is interpreted. So we teach a lot around like emotional regulation. I think it's important to feel important to have those emotions, but then also unfortunately teaching them that like if you show up in this certain way in this certain environment, that like there are realities to the society that we live in. And so yeah, I think about awareness when I think about the shift of becoming a black man from a black boy.
Yeah, and I think preparing black boys for the unexpected is very important. I'm thinking about Elijah McClain, you know, the young brother in Colorado who was just walking home at night from violin practice, and he wound up dead. And again, Trayvon Martin. I mean, both of them were I don't want to say they were unprepared. I don't know if their parents had given them the talk, but I think that we got to prepare young black men for the unexpected. And unfortunately, we have to prepare them for the unexpected violence that is meted towards them, and they're not expecting it. And I think that's something that black men have to be prepared for too. The brother in your city, Tyree, I don't know, I mean, we're still finding out things about him, Brennan, but a lot of times, as a black man, I'm more aware of what's going on around me than I think a white boy. You know, I think white boys just say we own the world or the universe or something. And I think that we can say the same thing, but it can be truncated real quick.
That's deep. That's deep. I wanted to touch on trying to figure which way should I go. I have a question for you, Dr. Wimbush. I think I'll go this direction. In your book, The Warrior Method, which was mentioned earlier by Dr. Menzies, I saw that you had a very interesting concept that I wanted to expound upon and discuss here tonight. There's a chapter called The Seasons of Our Sons, and you laid out 4 seasons for Black men, Black boys growing into manhood, based on their age. And you said ages from conception to age 4 is considered the spring. From ages 5 through 12 is the summer. 13 to 21 is autumn, and 22 and beyond is winter. Now, I didn't read the whole book to know all of the descriptions, but it made sense to me. The one that resonated with me immediately first was the winter, because I felt like exactly, it's like after 22, it's like nobody cares about you anymore in a way. Because, there's a lot of programs or people in church or in the community that there's this whole thing to save Black boys or, Black boys are behind this, all these initiatives or a lot of talk. To me personally, I think some of that is the talk around it is kind of damaging to a young Black boy coming, because they might not even be ready to feel all of that yet, but you're like putting it on them. It's like you want to prepare them, but at the same time, it's like as they're coming up, it's like a weight that they're carrying. But the winter though, is like, okay, now you're off to yourself, and you realize it's a cold world. So that's my interpretation of it. But I do want you to be able to expound upon these 4 seasons and it. Especially with the spring, growing, so that makes sense. Seems like you're tapping into some universal principles there as well. So I wanted you to kind of expound on that.
Very quickly, the thing is, and Jeff will tell you this, we're both psychologists, that all these white folks have developmental theories about everything. So if you're in the Freud, it's oral anophallic latency in general. They got Erickson. There are no developmental theories for Black boys. So what I try to do is just lay out a simple paradigm, spring, summer, fall, and winter. The winter years, I feel, when we're adult, all of the men in this room are in that period, is that you start giving the wisdom that at that time I hope you've acquired, and you give it out to people. You become, a mentor. And I, really like the term Jagman much better than mentor, because you got to find out who mentor was. He wasn't a very good guy in Greek mythology, but that's another discussion too. So, the winter years, you're supposed to be developing healthy relationships with women. You are supposed to be protecting your community, giving things out. So it's the idea, we begin to die the minute we're born, as the old saying goes. The thing about winter, you realize that your death is a little bit closer, so you do something. What legacy do I leave? If I'm 40, 50, 60 years old, and increasingly we're seeing young brothers, dying, and what legacy are they leaving even at the age they are, if they're 40 or 50? So the idea of winter is, it's death, but it's you're looking at death and say, what do I leave behind me for others to follow this positive? And the other stages, they go, what you should be teaching. It's too much to get into now, but if you read the book, you'll see that it talks about what you should be doing at certain ages. And I started at conception. I think that, Black children and Black fetuses, in the womb, that you start nurturing, what that child is going to be. And that's male or female.
Definitely. Now you mentioned, thank you for that answer. And as he said, you can get a more thorough, detailed explanation of the seasons if you get the book, The Warrior Method, which we do have here at Sankofa. And you can also go on the website, sankofa.com, to purchase that. Now, the book is called The Warrior Method. And you mentioned this word twice today, Jegna. So I wanted to expound some light on this word. The word Jegna, it actually comes from Ethiopia, and it's a Amharic word, and there's no real direct translation into English. However, Dr. Wimbush mentioned something very important to the concept of being a Jegna, is willing to protect your community and die for your community. And it goes into being a warrior. Originally, and I actually got more information on the term Jegna. It's interesting how we in the African-centered or community in the diaspora, we take words and we get meaning from them, but sometimes we apply a new context to our situation, but it relates to the original, but it's just the way that we develop African concepts from the continent into the diaspora. So in the term Jegna, I was told, speaking to some of my Ethiopian friends, that really originally you had to be a warrior. It's a title that you get through being a warrior, someone who's willing, and not only willing, but proven to risk their life and even take life for preserving the community. And so, we're not necessarily on a physical battlefield. That's arguable, you're right? But we're not necessarily on a physical battlefield in the traditional sense, but we still need those Jegnas, those heroes, those people who you can look up to and also bring forward the next generation and really leading by example. And so, yes, you have the book, The Warrior Method. That's why I wanted to segue into that book, The Warrior Method, because a Jegna is a warrior. And can you explain to us the Warrior Method and why is it needed to help raise boys into men?
Okay. I'll try to do that in 25 words, I know there was a sister that wrote this book. What was the name of Erica Badu, about what's the song? Tyrone.
Called Tyrone.
Yeah, and it was a book called Raising Tyrone out or something. And they didn't like me using the term warrior method. And I think when we think of warrior, we always think of somebody that, going out and fighting. A warrior protects. And I mean, that's the number one thing they ought to be doing is protecting. And I think the key thing for me is that a warrior is somebody that is willing to die for their community. I don't think, and I'm almost using Jegna and warrior interchangeably because I don't think we have that many Jegnas in the Black community right now. We had Malcolm, we had Fannie Lou Hamer, Dr. King. I've been rereading Kwame Ture's gigantic book, his autobiography, Ready for Revolution. And I'm amazed at how he didn't care about dying. And most of us do. Jeff mentioned Bishop Tutu. I was at Bishop Tutu's house in South Africa, specifically Cape Town, about 20 years ago. And, Tutu, I don't know if you know about it, he walked on the beach in South Africa. And it was against the law for Black people to walk on the beach. And he announced that he was going to walk on the beach. And the police came out with these these long rubber things, I forget. Anyway, when he walked on the beach, the helicopter came over him. He started being beaten with these like whips almost, and sand got in his eyes. And I was listening to him tell the story, and he said, I said, well, how did you feel, Doc? And he said, well, the worst thing that could have happened to me was that they could have killed me. But he said it very casually, like, I said, well, how did you feel about that? He said, well, the worst thing they could do to me is kill me, And I said, do we have people like that now? And I could name some people on a national level, but I don't think they're generals. So I don't want to call names, but some of you know what I might be talking about.
That reminds me of a saying, and I'm drawing a blank on which song it comes before. I believe it's one of the Tupac songs, but it was a saying, a quote. They sampled it from a speech, and it was saying, "A coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a soldier dies but once." So it gets into the concept of bravery and courage. I think it sounds like from the conversation, it takes a lot of courage to be a black man, to be a Jegna, a warrior black man. And how do young brothers, this is a question for everyone, how do young brothers develop the courage to face, and not just in terms of against violence, but also to step up and take responsibility for providing for themselves, their families, being those people, those reliable, upright, people that the women and children in our community are looking for us to be. How does one, because I think, and this is from my own experience and just with other brothers and myself, is that, sometimes we lack our own self-confidence to even take care of our own selves. So then, financially or otherwise, and that often deters us from commitment or from, trying to take on too much, and more so you develop a nonchalant, laissez-faire type of attitude, but it's more of a front because you're actually, doubtful that you actually can step into those shoes,
I think courage comes from a sense of competency, a sense of knowing how to do stuff, how to survive, if your car broke down on you, can you get home still? If you walk into some folks trying to run up on you, do you know how to evade or take them out first? It comes from that sense of competence of, when you're hungry, can you make your own food? If somebody needs you, can you show up and help them? And I think that's where your courage comes from, because now you have a sense of security within yourself, and then other people can also depend on you. And that's what our rites of passage programs are, originally about, and those that still exist that are real, still do. They show our young boys how to survive, how to make things happen, how to find food, how to find their way out the woods. I remember, Doc, you went on something years ago. They dropped y'all off in the woods with Bobby Hannibal at Freak. And Dr. Honey, it's in a matter of fact, the Okotos here, Nation House, right? So we still got those pockets that help. And if you look at most of the folks that come out of Nation House, are very secure, very confident, very courageous, men and women nowadays. And it's a certain glow, it's a certain vibe. I talk to my family all the time, my spiritual family, my physical family, about, just like the known sacrifices that we made raising our children, in a different way, building the next level of competence and confidence that deals with more than just, the physical part, but we dealing with our, you got physical means of fixing stuff, and you also got psychological means and mental means, and you also got spiritual ways of doing things. And I think one thing that oppression did was stripped us of our mental and our spiritual aspects and made us overly reliant on physical circumstances. I teach my son all the time, all right, it's gonna be A, B, and C sometimes with the car. So first thing I suggest you try to do if something go wrong is you sit and you visualize it getting back right. And this, matter of fact, the moonroof, you're gonna open that thing up and one time it ain't gonna close. I said he opened it and it didn't close. I said, you see those clouds in the sky? The rain coming. Get to work. I went in the house. He came in 2 minutes later with a beanie. Because he tried to push the button. I said, that ain't gonna get enough, trust me. You just gotta sit, you gotta visualize it first, and then all of a sudden you'll hit that button and it's gonna work. I went out, literally within 2 minutes, he was walking back in the door and you could just see it in him, like, I did that. And it wasn't the physical thing, it was something else that I tapped into that we have. And again, that's what one of the things they took from us was that ability that's natural to us. You know, that those psychological gifts, like Doc said earlier, you know, we got all these European and white supremacists, suspected white supremacist psychologists that we're studying, and they can only frame psychology in the way that they know it to be, which is like super limited compared to what we know it to be. And ours always surpasses the boundaries of their reality. Their paradigm is like, who was it? I don't want to misquote, but who was it? Oh, it's Tony Brown that says, like, if our history was a 1,000-page book, slavery took place between pages 995 and 999. And that's the window of opportunity that white supremacy has had to control us, right? And so when you start to expand our understanding of reality and what it really is, then you start to build that true competence, that true courage. That's why a brother like Archbishop Tutu can stand like that. He's like, what's the worst they can do is kill me? Because in his worldview is that when you shed this body, you're still here anyway. Matter of fact, go ahead and free me up. Go ahead and free me, like Baba Gregory on the wall behind you. Go ahead and free me up real quick so I can go ahead and start moving without these physical limitations now. Y'all want that for real? Right? So when we understand ourselves to that degree, that's when true courage steps in, right? That's because you got a next level of security that they can't do nothing about except confuse you about it.
And that was a wonderful answer. I really appreciate this. Let's just clap it up for that answer. And you touched, anybody else want to touch on the concept of how boys develop that courage to be a man and take care of their own responsibilities, their family, and to face the world? Okay, that's cool. We can move on because oh, you do? Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, a little bit of a lag over here. I'll add just a couple of things. I think Dr. Menzies, your story with your son is like beautiful because it feels like an affirmation of that confidence that you're talking about. And I think that like that in my story, and I feel like as I think about the boys that I have educated, it's been also important to develop the courage. It's like this affirmation that like I am competent, or that the boys that I teach are competent, that then they take, because I as a Black man have affirmed that my father has affirmed me as a Black man, and then use that to like kind of get to that true courage. And so yeah, I think that's the only thing that I was thinking of and reflecting on when you were sharing. So I think that is an additional piece that can kind of push forward this courage.
Yeah, affirmations. You talked about affirmations. Dr. Menzies mentioned visualization and mentioned the spiritual component. So that's a perfect segue into my next question. And I do want you to touch on this, Brother Brennan, as well, because on the back of your in your bio, you started off with saying that you're a believer. So I want you to expand on that and what that means to you. And the general question for everyone is, you kind of touched on it a bit, Dr. Menzies, but it'd be great if you all could go into more detail. How important is religion or spirituality to a Black boy or a Black man thriving? And I understand that we all have different spiritual systems and beliefs. So I do kind of want folks to be a bit personal as well. So how has spirituality or religion impacted you in becoming a thriving Black man? And how do you feel like it is important for the general, for others as well? So we can start with you, Brennan, because I did mention that. Can you speak on that? What is your faith and your spirituality? What is it? First of all, what is your faith and spirituality? And secondly, what does it mean to you as a Black man and being thriving?
Yeah, so I am a Christian. I say believer most times instead of Christian, just because of the political nature of Christianity, in terms of the religion of it. But I do like believe in God in the Christian sense. And so I think when I think about how how it's been important for me as a Black man, I think about just the mere pressure that I feel as a Black man at times, to kind of, um, and like in moments where I don't feel like I always have the courage to kind of do the things that we've been talking about. And I think that oftentimes for me, my faith is what kind of helps me, and encourages me, and like knowing that there's a higher power that I can also lean on. I think about I was kind of nervous about this event because my wife is expecting, and she's due any day now. So was happy that I was able to be here tonight. But as I'm thinking about being a father for the first time, like there feels like a lot of pressure. But knowing that like I have God the Father who, kind of takes over for me when I am weak, and knowing that I'm really a stand-in for Him, like pointing my future daughter to Him, kind of helps me both in terms of like, the pressure I feel, but also like as a Black man, just like, despite what society might say, despite what, different, other outside circumstances may, typecast me as, that like there's my higher power, which I believe in God in the Christian sense, has sees me as His, and so that's how I feel like it has helped me as a Black man.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Menzies?
So I'll deal specifically with the religious part, but more from the spiritual aspect. Because to me, much of what we get as far as our religious orientations now are kind of like the artistic expression. And we're missing the scientific aspect, so I found to differentiate between religion and spirituality. Religion being the artistic expression, spirituality being the science behind it. And so I've taken a more spiritual approach to my manhood and my growth and development. From the time that I knew that I could, is when I did. And so that way, no matter what religion I'm approaching, because I'm baptized as a Christian, grew up as a nationalistic Muslim for a certain part. My stepfather was he sent me to elementary school in a Malcolm X teacher when Black History Month. So they're gonna be scared of you, they're gonna be scared, And I didn't know why, I just knew it was the one with Malcolm X looking out the window with the assault rifle. I had no idea what was happening, but I did it, He's like, was they scared? Yeah, they were scared of you. But anyway, I just think that the spirituality again is one of the things that they took from us. It's kind of like if you could convince Superman, his name is Kal-El, right? He has a god named El, and if you could convince him that he was actually Clark Kent, and you see all of the abilities that he would be negating, functioning in the world as Clark Kent, how much effort he would actually have to put into not being his true, God self. And I think I think religion in many ways has functioned in that way, especially when it's taught to us by white supremacists and white supremacy, to dull ourselves and deaden ourselves to the point to where we no longer tap into all those powers and gifts that we have. But spirituality, it gives us that permission to embrace the science again. So when we're reading, for example, the story of Jesus in the Bible, when he, had a basket with a few fish in it, a couple loaves of bread, and he was able to feed the multitude, or, turning water into wine, and, send the tax collector come and send one of his boys down to the water to get a fish and pull coins out the mouth. Pay this man his taxes so we can get on about our business. Nobody was sweating, nobody was running from the tax man. They took care of business. And it just showed how effortlessly we can approach life without the fear of what the physical world is demanding on us, because we've got a source and a power that goes beyond that. I've never seen a minister, preacher, a good reverend doctor talk about that part of it in that way. And so, but the spirituality will allow us to approach it in another way. And I think that's the essence of manhood, because again, it changes our walk, it changes our talk, it changes the models that we put before our young boys, to follow and to guide them. Because now they see us doing things in a more active, assertive, and empowered way. And then we can teach them the same thing. They know how to pour libation. My son and I, we're ritual drummers, for African spiritual system. So it's just those types of things that are the seeds that are planted that are part of our reclamation of what they took from us, or what they tried to take from us.
Yeah, I believe in the ancestors and the creator. And, I listen and, to Christians, Muslims, Zoroastrians, and a whole lot of other people. And I think religion tries to understand God And unfortunately, in some cases, and in fact, in many cases, I think that we are confused by religion, but we shouldn't be confused by spirituality. In West African, you know, system, there's really no word for religion, but there is a word for spirituality and how, and there's expressions of God and the Creator in a variety of ways. So I try to stay, similar to what Jeff was saying, this, understanding things from a spiritual point of view, understand that there's some things, like I hear Christians and Muslims, sometimes I think, they should simply say, I don't know and I don't understand, rather than trying to explain everything. So that's where I am.
So real quick. One of the best definitions of religion I've ever heard was Mr. Fuller. He says religion is simply a way of life. And so if you define religion as a way of life, then you see that each and everybody has their own individual religion. No matter if you're a part of the same religious organization, your way of life it has to vary from the next person because you don't even breathe at the same rate. And breathing is a part of your way of life. And I think that if you cut down, that's what I love about Fuller and his work, is that he can boil it down, to the smallest, and it's like, okay, now religion is your way of life, done. So now I need to know what's your way of life, regardless of what you call it. What does your religion, your way of life tell you that you should do about these issues? Somebody that believes and behaves like I do, what does your way of life tell you about that? Because he says those are the important parts for real.
Yeah, sometimes we get sometimes we get distracted by this the symbol and not the substance. So these words are really just our attempt at approximating the reality that we can't really grasp. Even languages, we're grasping at something and throwing it out there, but we never really grab hold of the actual thing that we're talking about. And so I think that's the same way with religion. I have a lot of questions on here, but I'm kind of going based on the way the conversation is going. And where I'm led to now is I have a question about research. So it's kind of shifting gears, but at the same time, we're still going in a direction because we're talking about research. So you two gentlemen work at the Institute for Urban Research, right? And I want myself, I went to Howard and studied, got my degree in African Studies and Research. And so I know the importance of research. So I want you all to speak on, the importance of research and what is research to you? How can young people become better researchers? What's the difference between, a Google search versus thorough research? So, and there will be a follow-up to that would be, what areas do we need to research more in order to thrive as Black men and as a Black community?
The best definition I've ever heard of research is organized inquiry. That you pick something and you go deep into it. You read about it, you may test it by doing what is called field research. Research sounds like something that's reserved for the university or, a think tank or something like that. But you can do research on anything. Every January 1st, I decide what I'm going to be reading in general during an entire year. So this year, I'm reading a lot of biography and autobiography. And I've discovered some books written about Malcolm. I found one written by his nephew that I had never heard of called The Seventh Son. And so I'm going to be reading that, about Malcolm. I'm reading, as I told you earlier, about Kwame Ture. So research is just going into depth into something. It's organized inquiry in a very systematic way. It's studying things. It's going, Jeff and I are at the Urban Institute, and we look at issues involving cities and people, the challenges they encounter in cities. So And what we should be researching, black folks should be researching everything. I mean, we should be making systematic inquiry about everything. One of the things Jeff keeps mentioning, Neely Fuller. Every time I see Mr. Fuller and I say, "Hey, Mr. Fuller, how you doing?"
Still learning.
He says, "Still learning." You know, and how old is he now?
90 something.
90 something. You know, and he's still learning. And many of us think that you stop learning, you stop inquiring, you stop doing your research when you finish college or get a degree or whatever. You should be learning something new every day, especially as a black person.
One of the things that Fuller says all the time, he says right now there's probably a white man at the bottom of the ocean studying a grain of sand right now. And he says they seek to learn as much about as much as possible. He says we should do the same. He says learn as much about as much as you possibly can. And there's nothing that's not worth your study. You know, I mean anything. Like when you asked the question, like somebody could come in here and study and do research on what's the major theme in all these Black Panther comic books right there. And so they would read it and they would have that thought, I'm looking for the major theme. So now they're looking for patterns to keep showing up. And in that process, though, the beautiful thing about research is that during that process, you learn more than you ever set out to learn. Because in order to get to the answers to the questions that you're asking, you got to sift through a whole lot of other stuff. Like right now, Doc Stacy's texting me, she sent me a picture of Du Bois is the soul of white folks. So have you read this? And I'm like, yeah. So I'm trying not to, because I heard, she's excited and it's contagious. But she's doing research right now, and she's a journalist. But the way I describe our colleague Stacy, she's like a pit bull. Once she's locked on to something, she ain't letting go. And when she does finally let go, there's nothing to let go of because she done shook it all out. And so that's research. I mean, research is asking questions and seeking the answers to it. A Google search is a viable form of research. I mean, of course, because Google, you get access now. You need a sense of discernment. And look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, discernment. Come on, church. Right, spirit of discernment. You need that because, some sites aren't viable. Some sites are literally pumping deception. But, going through Google search, you can go from anything from academic journals and articles all the way down to op-eds to somebody's personal experience or website. So I think all of that is viable and valid as a part of the research process. Just research, I think we do it anyway, children especially, and I think that as the adults, their drive to continue to learn and want to know depends heavily on their environment and the adults in that environment. Because a child asking too many questions oftentimes gets shut down. And it's seen as a bad thing, but that's the foundation of research, asking questions, wanting to know more about stuff. We come into the world that way. Mr. Fuller said that if I'm shouting out Fuller because he's dope like that. He said the flag that black people or, non-white people should have, most important, he said, just get a flag and put a question mark on it. He said, that should be our flag. He said, because we're trying to figure it out. He said, so it's like it just inspires you to keep asking questions about stuff and continue to seek the answers. I think that's what we need to be doing, everything.
That's a beautiful answer. It's a beautiful answer. I want to also transition to the next question. So we spoke on research, and we're here on a panel with Black men educators. Myself included, I am a teacher also. You mentioned Nation House earlier. I work at Nation House as well, teaching social studies and physical education. And I want to know, what is the role of the Black male educator? And because we're all educators here, what is the role of a Black male educator? I'll just leave it as an open-ended question. And that was actually my goal, was to start with. Thank you for reminding me. I wanted to start with Brennan because you didn't get in on the research question, and you did mention that you mentioned your boys that you teach. I know you all teach in college level. Brennan, I teach in the middle school level. Brennan, what grade level do you teach?
Yeah, I teach middle school as well. I'm not teaching currently, but I taught fifth, seventh, and eighth. And so, I think. Oh, what was that?
I was just saying, shed any light on the question.
Yeah. So I think that I think I'll go back to like my first teaching job, teaching all boys, and 95% of them were Black boys. And I saw my role as a Black male educator, to see them and to see them as fully human. I think a lot of times uh, Black children and Black boys in particular go into different classrooms where they don't have teachers that see them beyond what they see outside of them. So like on the or like the color of their skin or like whatever stereotypes that they have about Black people that they haven't deconstructed for themselves. And so uh, I was my one of my major goals was to see them because in seeing them, I saw myself in a lot of them. Um, I think the other goal was to show them what was possible. And so I think to earlier question we had was like the types of Black men that my boys saw. I think I was a different version of that. Um, Seeing me as their teacher, a lot of times, even in Memphis, where we have about 60-70% of the population is Black people. They've had Black female teachers before, but I was their first Black male teacher for a lot of them. And so I think that showing them like this is something that I could do. This is something that, or like, I don't have to do the things that I've seen in other contexts, and it's okay that I want to do something different. And so I think that those are the two things that I would say is to see them and then show them what's possible.
First of all, I think it's very important to realize how rare Black male teachers are. How many of you in the audience from grades 1 through 6 had a Black male as a teacher? 3, 4. When I left Tennessee to move to Maryland 20-some years ago, there was one Black male teacher teaching kindergarten in the entire state of Tennessee. So Black male teachers are very rare. The number one teacher of Black males in this society are white females, and that's K through 12. It changes when you go to university and college, but it's still, from K through 12, it's very rare to get a Black male teacher. So I think that I see myself as a role model, first of all. I've had students who were freshmen in college say I was the first Black male teacher they ever had. And they may have gone through a white system and so forth, but how rare we are should give us, a sense of humility. But also, you've got to appreciate why is there not more Black male teachers in the system. And I don't think the system of white supremacy wants that. Because if you train Black, if you have a bunch of Black men, and there's data to show that where there are Black males in K through 12 schools, that you have a lower level of violence, you have a lower level of discipline problems and everything, because they see children, the children see people that look like them. So
I think another important role of Black men as teachers is that we are able to see our students, our Black and brown students, and acknowledge them as they truly are. Like we can look at a small Black boy in class who might be quote unquote cutting up, and we're not looking at him with that disdain. We're looking more at him like corrective, like, come on fam, you know that ain't right. And I think that type of engagement, as opposed to the strictly punitive one, it does wonders for the child. Doc, you got an analogy, you said like Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson all in your class or whatever.
right.
Yeah, tell that real quick. It's something he said, I can't repeat it, I don't know.
I forget.
It's Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, if you have
Mike Tyson, I think.
if you have Michael Jordan in a classroom, you're going to say what to him? Sit down. If you have Mike Tyson in class, you're going to tell him to behave. If you have Michael Jackson in a class, you're going to tell him to shut up. I forget. Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy, you're going to tell him to shut up. And I think that there's stereotypes of Black men. When I was considered hyperkinetic, but that was, when I was young. And I remember being in the corner all the time, and teacher telling my mother and father he fidgets all the time, and blah, blah, blah. And I had no Black male teachers up until the ninth grade. So I think again that we don't have a lot of black males around because this system abuses them so much. And if you try to go recruit them, and I've been on those trips, and brothers will tell me, young brothers say, I don't want to be a teacher because teachers punish you and things of that nature. So we need to encourage, the recruitment of black teachers, black male teachers as well.
So, Doc, you brought up fidgeting. I was doing I moonlight as an actor for the weekend, so just playing. Like, I get into everything, and so they were shooting a movie, and I happened to be in Cincinnati on spring break. And Terrence Howard was in the movie, and I was on set. I went from being an extra to being a stand-in for the week. And so that means you get to sit in on all important film roles. Like, if this was a movie, this is where the main actors were, we would sit here and let them set up the lights and the camera, and then we'd move out, the main actors would come in. It was on set, and I noticed that Terrence was on set, and he was like, fidget, he would mess with everything. If this was a set, he picking this up, he looking at it, his phone, he gonna see if it's a real phone, if it is, he gonna, everything, the camera, the lights, he gonna mess with everything. I said, this dude is a tinkerer. He's running around this room just messing with everything. Lo and behold, this dude got 96 patents. He's actually an inventor, a patented inventor, to the level of where we have conversations with NASA and all other type of people. And as a black male teacher, I was able to look at this black man and see that in him, and I can only imagine that growing up in school, he probably got punished big time because I know he ain't changed. He's probably always been that way, curious, wanting to get into things. Me, I see it, I'm like, yo, what you got? What you doing? Word, let me help you to move that forward. It's the same as in the classroom. Man, you dope. I hear you making all those beats on the desk. Let me get you a djembe. Are you in band? Why don't you play the drums in band? Instead of stop beating on the desk. I see you running around, you real quick, you can run over there and snatch somebody's pistol and get back to your chair before they know it's gone. Track team, right? I think that's one of the important roles of black men as teachers is to recognize who our children are and help them to recognize themselves and to avoid the punishment.
I do want to get into some questions from the audience, but you guys got me excited to think about myself as well. The whole kinesthetic aspect, I have a lot of jobs. So I'm also a personal fitness trainer. And the reason I did that is because, they always just say, my grandmother was like, but you got ants in your pants or something, boy, you can't sit still, you're always fidgeting. And what I realized is that, I always did sports throughout my life, and it kept me balanced, and there's an intelligence also with sports. So even though we say, oh, you don't got to be a baller or whatever, but even somebody who's playing sports, they're showcasing an incredible amount of intelligence. It's just a different type of intelligence, and there's so many lessons that you can actually learn in sports with your coaches that you're not going to get in school. And a lot of these are some of the lessons that help you to be a man, like in terms of you have to fight through the pain. You have to you have to remain calm when you're nervous, In a basketball game, if you can let your nerves get to you, you're going to be missing shots. So you have to be able to stay calm under pressure. And these are things that happen, but the same thing with taking a standardized test. I mean, some people make the test such a big thing that, their brain stops working when they get in front of it. So these are things that we definitely have to learn. It was so many thoughts I had, but I won't take up everything. I want to open it up for Q&A from the audience. There was a brother who already mentioned that he wanted to ask a question. We do also have people watching on YouTube, so please type in your questions into the chat. Hopefully, someone can get those to me, and we can incorporate you all as well. Brother, I'm gonna actually bring the microphone to you so that you can get picked up on the audio.
I appreciate this, man. This is amazing, absolutely amazing. I'm saying Jeff because that's the easiest thing for me. Am I correct, Jeff? Someone answered the question. Anybody can answer the question because they're all educators here. But I would like for you first to define from your prism, what is education and how do we teach it in a public indoctrination system?
Okay. So, education is But the true definition of ideologically, looking at etymologically, ideology, etymology, the word etymologically. Thank you. Looking at the word right itself, it comes from the Latin ducere, or ducare, right? And so that's to lead out. And so education is really supposed to be about, again, seeing what's within that student and helping to bring it out. And part of it is also to help them learn information, but I think that we leave off that front part now. In the Western system, it's more about indoctrination. I tell my students all the time, you do not have to agree with me, you know, as long as you think about something differently. I said, but if you want to challenge it, make sure you're ready. Because I always warn them, I said, I done taught more classes than y'all take it. So it ain't like I'm just up here just bumping my gums. I'm up here really talking some stuff that I know. But you don't have to agree with me. That's not a prerequisite for passing this class, right? Because I want them to be able to think. And I think a part of what you bring out of them is their purpose. Like, what are they here for? Because every purpose and every disposition has its specific way, of perceiving and engaging in the world, right? And so and Doc was saying earlier about having an African perspective on development, right? Because we deal with Erickson, Jung, Ford, we deal with all the developmental theorists. And what I do is I bring in the tree of life, you know, as is laid out by Ron F. Amen, as stages of development. I actually use that part of my personality theories class. All of our Risha and all of our Netaru and Abasun and Luwa, those are all personality types according to African psychology. And that's how I teach that. And not only are they personality types, sidebar, I know this ain't part of the answer, but this is a part of what education is to me, is to teach them who and what they actually are. So whereas in Western personality, Jungian, you know, you're gonna have the big five, you know, you're gonna be introverted, or this, that, and you might want to different things. And the Western definition says that stuff is relatively stable and is consistent across time. What I teach from the African perspective is that, no, you come with a particular disposition, but it's in your best interest to be able to master all of them. Because you might run into a situation where Heru Kahudi or Ogun is your best bet, you know, as opposed to coming in very watery and laid back on some old Oshun or Yema Ya or Heru type stuff, right? And so the more that you can master, the more tools you have in your toolkit as far as how you manifest who and what you are to whatever circumstance you're showing up as. And so to me, education is bringing out, what is your purpose? Why are you here? You know, what's your disposition? Are you fiery? Got you. So I know when I'm dealing with you as a fiery student in my class, I got to keep you engaged. I got to challenge you because you too smart. Not too smart, but for this slow pace, you gonna get it so quick, like fire. They burn up a piece of paper quick, right? You bury a piece of paper in the earth, it's gonna take a while to dissolve it. You know, eventually it's gonna break it down and make it a part of the soil. You put it in water, it takes a while for water to, you know, soak into the paper and disintegrate it, but that fire, boom, quick. And so if I look at you fire, I gotta keep you going because you're gonna be ahead of the game, and I gotta keep you interested, and I gotta keep you focused, right? So otherwise, you're gonna be a flamethrower up here, fire everywhere. I want you to be a blowtorch. Flamethrower gonna heat up a steel door, blowtorch gonna cut through that joint, right? And so it's those types of things that I'm understanding as far as what education is. And the more educators that we can get re-educated to go back and find out what your purpose is as an educator. Wait a minute, you gotta think, why did you become an educator? You know, physical fitness, you marshal in the mud, but you more solar than you are martial. You know, so that's why yours can be a steady pace. You know, you can go through college, you know, you can take your pace, you can be very well grounded in what you're doing. That's more of a solar fire than that martial fire. You know, but anyway, it's about that. You find out what the purpose is, man, you bring it about the child, and then you facilitate however that disposition learns best and interacts in the world best.
That was an excellent answer.
If we could just get the world to understand that.
If we could just get the world to understand that, this is what the brother said. Thank you for your question.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Yes. Yeah, speak into the mic. Well, we need the people to hear you.
Somebody told me once recently, I hope it's not off the subject. It's a lot of men walking around, a lot of little boys in grown men's bodies. A lot of men walking around, little boys in grown men's bodies. So the question I'm asking, Dr. Winbush, is that book, can you give that to a fully grown man to read if he haven't fully developed mentally? And that's a lot in our community. And not in a condescending way, but that is a real situation that I see, you know, that's very painful for me you know, they say. Can you give that book to a grown man to read?
Yeah, I mean, you can give it to a grown woman and a grown man. You know, but see, as a psychologist, the question we're always asking is why. You know, like I'm like fantasizing right now. If this were an all-white audience, would white, women say, "How can you make white men, not be boys?" And see, I've got to ask always, how are we affected by the system of white supremacy? And it's a fundamental question. Again, quoting Mr. Fuller, if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, you will be confused by everything you think you understand. I added a couple of words, but the idea is that we have to understand white supremacy, and we don't understand how it works. Why do we have this dude that dresses is in a dress all the time? No, well, Tyler Perry too. This other one, he was, I can't think of it.
Like at the award shows and stuff.
Bobby
Tom, I know
Bobby Porter.
Bobby Porter.
Yeah,
Bobby Porter.
Billy
Porter.
Billy Porter. Now, then people say, "Oh, you're attacking the LGBTQ, whatever." What I'm saying is that we've got to understand why that is happening. We see how weaponized there is education, as Jeff just pointed out. We see religion weaponized by white Jesus. We see politics, all those 9 areas that Mr. Fuller and Dr. Francis Roosevelt talked about. The one area that we don't like to talk about weaponization is how is sex weaponized. And that's a whole discussion that's the most controversial of those as far as I'm concerned, because the minute you say certain things about sexuality in this society today, you can get, shut down immediately. So I think that we have to ask the question about why are there, black men who act like boys, we've got to ask those questions. And then I think if we do, we'll have a better understanding of how racism, white supremacy works.
Dr. Wells in the ISIS papers, I wish if I had a copy with me right now, it's page 89 or like 91, I was hoping it was somewhere close, I could grab one real quick. 89 or 91 or somewhere in that space. And she talks about how black mothers literally raise their sons to remain boys out of fear of what this world would do if they show up too assertive, too strong in this world that's designed to kill them and to do anything except to make them thrive. I'll just let me read her words real quick since I got the book. It's like we on go on. Psalms 22. No disrespect to the brothers. The reality of my first impression. Okay, maybe this is. Okay, here it is. She says, this is on page 92. She says, I've been working with black mothers of black male children, attempting to help them rid themselves of the fear of their sons and their men dying, which pushes them unconsciously to make babies of their sons and their husbands in an effort to try to protect and defend them. That's Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talking. And she wrote that chapter. This is her chapter on the black male passivity. She wrote this joint in 1974. And she saw it coming. And that's exactly what happened. The movie Baby Boy was about that. That's what the movie Baby Boy is about. So when you ask, what can we do about that? A lot of it starts with, the hand that rocks the cradle, and who births. I always tell, I deal with a lot of relationship stuff, and I do it controversially on purpose. It's this term called F-boys. And F-boys, you see, and then, finish the spelling on that curse word. And, sister always, I'm tired of F-boys, I said, well, F-boys are born, to their mothers. And most of the time, it's a woman that created that F-boy. And it's not a slight against sisters and women at all, but it's exactly what Dr. Welsing is talking about, and what Dr. Wimber said. Within the context within which we exist, it's a functional survival tactic. but it only helps them survive and not necessarily to thrive. Because you got to be, going back to your earlier question, you got to be a man to thrive in this world. But oftentimes to survive, you got to be a non-threatening boy. And that's why a lot of times a man get on the phone, his voice will go up when he's trying to get something, you know, hi, yes, I'm just calling to see if you can, it's like, where'd the base go? But it's understood, you know, brothers make themselves small. If you, Dr. Wimber's 6'9", 6'12". But this brother, it's a tall brother. And I'm sure that growing up, you know, well, he's always been raw. His initials are R-A-W, by the way. But you know, there's times where it might be better for him to play small if he really wants to survive. I got on the elevator last night, real quick, last thing I said, and there's a white couple on there, and they had a pit bull. And the elevator door opened, and the pit bull stuck his head out. And I got on the elevator anyway, because they was expecting for me to just say, oh, I'm good, I'm gonna wait for the next one. I got right on there, and so the man had the dog in the back corner, he was holding the dog, and the woman had her back to me, but kind of watching the dog. And so as the doors was closed, I said, hey, your dog good in tight spaces like this with strangers? And they just looked at me. As long as I keep the leash tight, we ain't gonna have no problems then. And we rolled onto our floors. And that was me not making myself small, backing down and playing scared. Even though I know this bishop, he could have turned the dog loose on me. Yeah. And it's my word against theirs and this dog. But I also don't have a problem snatching the dog's eyes out and going for the kill, because one of the things that we don't do in situations like that, it's like a burning building, people be scared to break a window. It is because we're still in the mode of doing the least amount of damage to survive. And we got to switch that, because the Bible says whatever by any means necessary. So had that been the case, I was prepared to go ahead and just take out the dog, you know, with a couple of swoops. He might have bit me once, but it would have been the last thing it ever did. And they were clear about that by my vibe. It was non-threatening. And plus, the dog knew I wasn't threatened. I got a dog. I looked at that little puppy like, it wasn't a puppy, but I was like, I know you're a pit, but I'll kill you. Anyway, but that's, you know, we got to have training on to wake that back up, sis, right? Because it's a survival technique. What Joy said, Dr. DeGroot, I said that last thing I was going to say. Dr. DeGroot said, real quick, I'll shut up. Dr. DeGroot said, and on the plantation, it's functional for us to say that our little boys are bad and shiftless and they're lazy, because master gonna sell him off if he says he's doing too good. 2023, it's no good anymore.
I hope the question wasn't misunderstanding. The question was, can you give that to someone to help them?
Oh, yeah.
Like if their mentality is very immature.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, no doubt.
Yes, you can give this book to someone whose mentality is not fully developed, and if you know, whether they read it or not, you've done your due diligence. So you know, if they read it, it will help them though.
That's Sister Ray.
This sister has a question, and then I have a segue, because this concept of boy, I really wanted to touch on this, but I want you to ask your question first.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone that's speaking this evening, because you all are amazing, and I feel very blessed to be here. I wanted to ask everyone to give me maybe something for, you all are college professors, and I have a young man that will be going to college soon. I just wanted to have some words of wisdom or advice for all the young Black brothers that are about to embark on this new journey, this rites of passage into out of the home. Just as simply as that, do you all have any positive words of wisdom and anything that comes to your heart?
Well, you know, let me start with the negative real quick. Ooh. Okay, brother, I'm talking to you here, okay? The first year is the hardest year. More students drop out of college after their freshman year. That's why they have freshman year programs at universities and colleges. So the first year is very important. And the first year, make the best friends that will make you get through to the fourth year. That's what's critical. The second thing, to prepare yourself for college, I tell, you know, young Black males, read at least 30 minutes a day something about Black people to start anchoring yourself and get serious the first year. If you make it through the first year, they always talk about the sophomore jinx. You know, I call it the freshman, you know, freak, but that's a whole other thing. That how, I'm amazed how kids will start partying hard during the first year. And then they're not there the second year. And that thing you always see on TV about look at the person next to you, they're not going to be in school in 4 years. That's actually true. In fact, you can look at the next 3 persons next to you because only about a quarter of people, depending on what university it is, will make it. My advice, and I'm sure Jeff will co-sign on this, send them to a black college because we'll take care of them. And we'll give them more than a white college will give them. I always say that a white school will train you and a black college will educate you. And there's a difference between being trained and being educated. You can train a dog, like that dog that was in Jeff's elevator. Or your elevator. But you educate a person. You can't educate a dog, you can train a dog. So read and get serious that first year. Okay? That's my advice.
Understand that it's the beginning of the next phase of your life, and so take it as such and know everything that you're doing is going to impact what you can do later. And it's so important to keep that in your mind. So for the people that you roll with, the parties you decide to go to, the sisters you decide to involve yourself with, everything is going to determine what you can do later. And so you want to make sure that you are functioning in the way where you're preserving your life to be as valuable as you know that it is. And as Doc said, read, get enthusiastic about learning, that whole thing. I know in high school it could be this concept of, trying to be cool, but in college it's cool to be smart. It's cool to be that one that's getting grades. It's cool to be that one that's handling business. Get involved in on-campus organizations. Attach yourself to those things that are surviving and thriving, right? Those things that are excelling. I tell mine all the time, like, look, when you get there, you get to college, find the person who you would consider to be a quote unquote nerd or the one that's a quote unquote geek and be like them. Turn it down a notch. Go low key, because that's what you're here for. You're building your professional self. You're building your adult self. And also act like you know where you come from. And I would say don't do anything that you wouldn't do in the presence of your mom. But there's some things that you do without your mom being around. So some things are okay, right? But for the most part, keep it tight, man. And know that you've got a network of people that love you and that support you and they got your backs. And a lot of people that need you. That's the other part. You're needed. That's how Doc pulled me up out of my slum. Well, he probably don't remember, but when I first went to college, I was still sagging my pants. I still thought I was a nigga. Yeah, all these different things. I still went to class smelling like weed, all kind of stuff. But just because I didn't care, I didn't even know to just trying to downtone it and downplay it because I was coming from where I came from. I actually moved a couple of my boys down to Nashville with me when I left Cincinnati. And when he started throwing me them keys and giving me the sense of responsibility, matter of fact, I started off as a biology major because I was going to med school. And then he made a statement in class. He said, "You free your mind and the rest will follow." And it just resonated with me. So I switched my major from biology to psychology that next semester. And I never looked back. And so, he was very instrumental in me being successful to this day, And so when you find somebody that's like that, you see a professor that's there, you see somebody who might be running the department, running an institute, go for it, volunteer, help out. They taking trips to places. I went to Africa my first 2 times because of him. Met everybody, Dr. Wells and Mr. Fuller, the Dick Gregory. He introduced me to all of those people. And I maintain a relationship with every one of them to this day, independent. And so, college can do that for you. It's supposed to transform you. It's supposed to help you into this next phase that you're going into. And just because I know you now, it's him and my son are day ones. Like literally, I know now since he was a day old. And so I know you, and I know your purpose, and I know your greatness, I know your destiny. And so, we looking forward to what Nile is about to become because this world needs a brother like you. And we got your backs, fam. You got a serious squad around you, bro. And we love you to life.
Ashe, ashe. I did want to get Brennan's input on that. What's your answer for this mother who wants to know if you have any words for her son and those other sons who are out there who are going to be entering into college? How can they be successful?
So I am about 8 or 9 years from my first going to college. So not extremely far off from that. So I would say, looking back, I think that I went to college 8 hours away from home, and I would tell somebody going to college, wherever they're going, not to do it alone, not to go it alone, not to isolate. I think that there's a lot of transition, and transition is hard, even if we don't want to admit it to ourselves. I think that in that, like, you have the academic transition, we also have the social transition, and that's going to cause different things to happen mentally and emotionally as well. And so, like, I think as men, we often have this, like, I need to keep it together. I don't need to reach out. I don't need to ask for help. And I think that is countering those ideas that are going to make you successful. It took me to my junior senior year to actually learn those. I learned those things, and I wish I would have started that way instead of like I went to this college and I need to keep it together because um, that's what I'm supposed to do. And so I think that's what I would share is yeah, don't isolate, reach out if you need that support.
Definitely. And one thing I would add from my own experience is that, it's great to get great grades, but it's not enough because this goes into my whole perspective on the winter. Because I always got good grades in school my whole life and even in college, all of it. And what I realized is that it's a bunch of people who got C's in school and they're running things out here because it only matters to a certain extent. What matters more than the grades that you get is what skills do you have and what value do you add to whatever space you find yourself in or the spaces you want to be in. You need that, if you have a skill that someone's willing to pay for, you don't necessarily need a degree. The degree is just a formality, really, to show that you have the discipline and dedication to stick with something and go through. It's like getting in the door, but it doesn't necessarily get you a plate of food or anything like that. And a lot of people, so I wanted to say that. So definitely make sure it's also who you know. I mean, not so much, like, you can know a bunch of people, but do they know you? It's like they say, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, but who you know. First of all, it's what you know and who you know, but one thing no one told me, and I don't think I ever put it like this until just now, but who knows you?
And what they think about you.
And what they think about you. Will they give you a recommendation? You're gonna, because it's gonna come a point you need to, to move to the next stage. Are they gonna vouch for you? How many people who are respected in their fields also respect you and will put their name behind you? That's very important. So definitely that would be what I would add. And this is something that this is my question. I think we do have some questions there. We're gonna come to a close pretty soon. But this was the question when Christina first brought this idea of this event to me. And we had a little back and forth. It was friendly. But this whole concept of hashtag Black Boy Joy, and then even naming the event Thrive Black Boy. For me, there was a certain uncomfortability and discontent with the whole Black Boy thing because of the question that you asked earlier, my sister, about there's so many Black boys there's so many Black men who are really Black boys because they didn't have that development, the arrested development. And we did touch on that. So for me, this was something I said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it kind of does speak to what you all were saying, what Dr. Wilson was saying. To me, it seemed like, who created this term Black Boy Joy? Was it a man? Was it a Black man? Or was it a Black woman? Because to me, maybe it was or wasn't, but to me, it seems like it may have come from a woman because it's like I don't feel empowered. I'm a grown man. He's like we're striving to be men, and we do want to be joyous, But there's this whole legacy of Black men being called boys, even though you may be a respected person in your community, but then they still say, "Hey, boy." So using terms like Black Boy Joy to refer to us as Black men, I don't resonate with it. I do, but then I do resonate with using it for boys because oftentimes it's like a double-edged sword. It's like they make you age too fast, but they don't treat you as a man, but it's more of like a burden or a beast or something like that. But, you know, the freedom of being a boy, of being a child, you know, sometimes Black boys aren't afforded that freedom just to be a child. We saw what happened to Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin, and even the what's the boy? The one who was executed long time ago. I can't remember his name, but the youngest person ever to be killed, you know, in an electric chair.
George Stinney.
Yeah, George Stinney. He was how old? 14? A 14-year-old Black boy was murdered, you know, by the hands of the state. And I think it came out that he was innocent. Yeah, it came out that he was completely innocent. So you do have a dichotomy there. So I wanted to know, what are you guys' thoughts on the hashtag, you know, Black Boy Joy, and how does it relate to this legacy of, you know, Black men trying to be, you know, demeaned and called boys? Does it relate? Does it contrast with it? You know, should we use the term? Do we need to qualify it? Whatever your thoughts are.
Well, I only found out about the term out 2 weeks ago. One of my students. Is this the thing on TikTok where Black men are like skipping and dancing around? That's the one that I. Is that it? Really?
Yeah.
You haven't seen that?
Like
Frolicking. That's right. That's the term. Yeah. And that's Black Boy Joy. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I always think that there's an attempt to infantilize Black men anyway. That's what they call us, boy. You know, and see, and then there's this other, you know, it's not an extreme where they'll talk about toxic masculinity as if.
That's my next question.
I don't know if we have time for that.
I mean, we ain't got time. But see, all of these things are like saying, you know, oh, and I'll tell you another one. I posted on Facebook a couple not even a week ago. I don't know if you've seen the cover of
with Rihanna.
British Vogue.
Yeah, British Vogue.
Right, with what's her boyfriend?
A$AP Rocky.
A$AP Rocky, and she's leading him on the beat. I thought it was a nice couple thing, but the brothers were all over it, and the sisters. They was, oh, this is infantilizing Black men again. A$AP Rocky was carrying the baby, and Brianna was in the lead, but it was a story about Brianna. So I didn't think anything about it, but I was looking at the
Rihanna.
It's because Rihanna.
That's because Rihanna's on the wall. Rihanna, right? Rihanna. I wasn't thinking anything about it, but everybody was having this reaction because I think there's this almost hypersensitivity about infantilizing and demasculizing Black men. So you won't see me frolicking. I don't frolic.
Not the frolicking type.
I'll run and I'll walk, but I won't frolic.
Can we let Brennan answer? Because
Yeah, no doubt.
you know, he got a pregnant wife at home that wants him to.
So let Brandon answer.
Yeah, since I will have to dip out after this question answer, but yeah, I don't think they're related. I think that my understanding of Black Boy Joy. So I didn't give you my full bio, but I am currently in school for clinical mental health counseling as well. And we think about, you have like the pop psych version of like this inner child work. But like we talk about that in actually like transactional analysis of like the parent, adult, and child version of yourself. And I think that I see it as like oftentimes Black boys have to grow up faster. Like I have boys that I teach that are taking care of their families. Like they are the man of the house at 13. And so I think that this idea of Black Boy Joy is like, as a boy, you should, like, as we talked about at the top of the show, we should be able to be carefree. We should be able to be free We should be able to dream is something that I said, or not have to deal with all these other things that we do as Black men. And so I think that giving Black boy joy sometimes is as a resistance to the ways in which men have to show up as Black men. And so I think that for me, like, yes, Black boy joy on TikTok is frolicking or whatever, but I think it can be expanded so much more than that to, like, how do I allow myself to just celebrate myself? How do I allow myself to be like to take a moment and be proud of myself instead of thinking about, I got that done, now I gotta go to the next thing? How do I take some time to like dream and really think about, if I didn't have like, if I really wanted to change where I am right now, what would that be? And so I think there's a ways to like expand our definition outside of like what we see. I've seen those TikToks too, but I think that it connects very much to me to like this idea of like going back to the freedom that we felt, or like I see also like this, like before like the weight of the world came on, or before we like knew all of the like evil in the world when we were boys. And so yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Appreciate y'all having me here. Christina was right, I do need to log off, but yes.
Take care, Brennan.
Thank you so
Brennan.
much for joining us, Brennan. Let's clap it up for Brennan. You can do a little bit better for Brennan. Please get his journal. Breathe, a guiding healing journal for Black men. He does say Black men, but and young men.
So real quick on that, I've never known that. Every time I've heard Black boy joy, I've always just thought they were talking about boys. I had no idea about the frolicking men on TikTok. To me, that's very problematic, especially within the context within which we're existing. So if we were outside of this context, cool. But like I said, when it was a time in boyhood where you could be carefree, that's not, manhood is not carefree. Especially when you're in the context of what Dr. Wells would call war, an ongoing war. And so I'm definitely gonna read from her real quick and read the book of Wells. But I think that I think it's problematic because Wells, and I'm sure she would ask, why can't we have a hashtag Black Man Serious? Yeah, ain't that a Wells thing? Yeah. Why can't we have a hashtag Black Man Serious and show a bunch of Black men building things with their hand, repairing cars, reading books, conducting scientific experiments, monitoring the streets, cleaning up the streets, right? So we can have Black boy joy, but I guarantee Black Man Serious wouldn't take off as far. It wouldn't be as viral as the Black boy joy, because again, what I read from Wells earlier, it's a degree of lacking seriousness that we need to have on some levels to survive, to appear non-threatening. So every one of those frolicking videos can be seen, look, we're not threatening. See, look, you don't have to worry about us. We ain't gonna do nothing serious. We're gonna dance, we're doing TikToks, just like the little kids. Just like, I'm joyful. You can be joyful. I'm joyful as all get. I laugh every day hard. I listen to probably about 4 hours a day, Chappelle today, just because. Yeah. Like for real. Like literally. Like this comedy special, YouTube, let's get it. Yeah. Right? And it's because I am very joyful, but I'm dead serious. Right? I'm dead serious. And so I think we need that. And here's what Dr. Weldon said she would suggest to her Black male patients who need to step up in their degree of seriousness and get off their frolicking stuff. My words, not hers. Page 91 of Nice Papers. She said, one method I have been using with all Black male patients, whether their particular disorder be passivity, effeminization, bisexuality, homosexuality, or other, is to have them relax and envision themselves approaching and opposing in actual combat the collective of white males and females without apology or giving up in the crunch. The fear of such a confrontation is at the basis of most of today's Black male pathologies and patterns of logic, thought, speech, action, and emotional response as they participate in all areas of human activity. That's the paragraph before the one where she talks about, the mothers raising their boys, to remain boys instead of going into men for fear of their life. Yeah, and so it's within that context, I can't see that as being anything positive or beneficial. I don't care how we spin it. We can spin it to make it feel some way if we need to, but the reality is they're keeping us less than men, and that's happening on purpose because we're less able to protect our families and therefore leaving our families more vulnerable to the domination of the system of racism and white supremacy.
Yes, we do. Thank you for that. And I agree 100%. I do want to get to your question. Let me just make this one statement. Just to speak on what Brennan was talking and what you were speaking on, we all do have, this is the way I kind of wrap my mind around it, but I still agree with you. We all have an inner child, you know, and that inner child is something that we should not necessarily let die. But given the context of the situation that we're in, talking about Black Boy Joy and displaying it in this way, you know, it's not appropriate. You know, we as Black men should never call ourselves boys. I think it was an add-on. It seemed like the term seemed like a latch on to the whole Black girl magic. I'm not gonna speak on whether Black women, they can do whatever they decide they wanna do. But in terms of boys, I don't think that boys and men, I don't think that is something that, I don't really feel, I never connected to it.
What if Black Boy Joy, instead of the frolicking, it showed fathers playing with their children's sons?
Now that is perfect.
What if they were engaging their sons in a joyful way, showing their sons, no, I'm gonna protect you from this stuff, have fun, let's run, let's play, let's roll around in the grass, let's toss the ball. What if that was the case? Is it the case in some situations?
That is the case.
In some situations?
Hold on, let's get a microphone to the sister. And then we do have, then pass it off to our brother for the, which will probably be the last question of the night, unless anyone has any burning desires that they need to get off their chest.
Thank you. What I see attached to Black Boy Joy is really just the pushback that of the old narrative that Black people in general don't have feelings, and Black men in particular don't have emotions. So it's like Black Boy Joy is the resistance of that narrative, that as it
It's the speaker that you said.
yeah. But I hear you in terms of the terminology. I can definitely see how that can be problematic in terms of how white supremacy has infantilized. I can never say that word right now.
That's a deep word right there.
Has infantilized Black men in general. So I can see why the terminology may not hit for every Black man, but I think the message behind it is more so that Black men are allowed to feel, period. Like, it's not necessarily, I think the dramatization of the joy is really just a response to the fact that Black men haven't been allowed to feel ever in terms of.
We're relying on your interpretation. If somebody just saw it without your
If
deep
someone
analysis,
saw it, yeah, I can
it's
see
Black
what
men frolicking as boys.
I see why
Right.
you would see that and be like, what is going on? But
That's what we got to go with.
it's the knee-jerk reaction to years of Black men don't know, Black men ain't this, Black men ain't, you know, all these adages that have been attached to Black men, and now it's like, no, actually Black men do have joy. Black men are raising their sons. Black Boy Joy isn't, raising Black sons is attached to Black Boy Joy. You know, the hashtag Black Men Smile, that's been a big one as well, you know, so that was probably a better hashtag than Black Boy Joy. So I just don't want you to hold on to the boy in Black Boy
But
Joy.
you gotta allow us
But
to.
what I will say is that sisters are pushing back on Black Girl Magic as well, because it's kind of an addition to the superwoman schema, as in the strong Black woman. So, you know, there's pushback on both sides to both of these terms, and you know, we can have that conversation. I just wanted to have both sides known.
Yeah, so just real quick, it's important if Black men are saying Black Boy Joy is problematic, it can be equally problematic for a sister to say, oh no, y'all just misunderstanding that. It's okay. And it's like, no, we're men, and we're telling you that it ain't okay. And so, but that's part of the problem, is that men aren't really allowed to have that space either, to just be like, no, we good, we know what we're saying. We're very clear about it, and sister, I appreciate that. I really do, and I love you to life for that perspective. But at the same time, you know, we got this. We got this
That's
one.
why I had y'all talk.
But so real talk, but I just think that that's important as well. We got to trust our men enough. If a man say that something is problematic for men, then we got to trust us enough that it must be problematic for men, and we can just leave it there, right? And it's like, okay, let me fall back and let me know how I can help.
Yeah, my question is about the Vogue magazine with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky.
Right.
And I just wanted to know what you guys' opinion, your first impression of it, and after looking at it now, what is your opinion on it?
I mean, when I saw it, I don't know. See, I think the level of security you have, I think Jeff said that, you know, I think when you're a secure black man and a secure black woman, there's certain things you say, well, that's everybody else is feeling that. I'm not feeling that. Why am I not feeling that? And why are they feeling that? I was looking at some of the responses. They didn't like the fact, if you've seen how many of you have seen okay, they felt that she was grabbing him by his penis. Okay, if you look at the picture, and they said, yeah, they got this. In fact, there's one that has put like lettering on. Somebody put lettering on it. They didn't think that A$AP Rocky should be holding the baby. I don't see anything wrong with a black man holding the baby. So what I tried to understand was how some of these folks, and a couple of the brothers that responded, at least on my thread, they're very insecure brothers. I know who they are. Okay, I said, well, I know why he did that. And the ones who I also know that I consider being very secure, they were cool with it, you know. But see, the other thing is this: I think that we've had trouble with magazine covers. But remember last year, I think it was when they put Kamala Harris on with tennis shoes on. I don't know if you saw that one. And then it was another one. LeBron, yeah, King Kong. Yeah, LeBron on Vogue with looking like King Kong with Giselle. You know, the woman that used to be married to Tom Brady. So, I think that sometimes, again, how white supremacy works is to say, how can we manipulate this image to cause us to fight each other? And what are we really fighting about here? Definitions of masculinity, femininity, roles, all of that. And I think that, the media does this all the time. I mean, all of us know, at least on my TV, all I see is black men with white women in commercials. Or I see, lone black women without, any man around. It's almost as if the media is telling us, black men and black women can't have intact black families. But that's what I'm seeing.
Speak on.
So yeah, with that, my first impression was, what are they up to now? That's Mr. Fuller said. He told me this a couple years ago. He says, if ever you see white folks coming that you didn't send for, he said, ask, what are they up to now? Right. This is British Vogue, right? It's the throne of white supremacy. So there's no way they're gonna put an intentionally empowering image of black people on their cover. They cannot, will not, do not do that. It's just part of their thing. And so with that being, that's the baseline that I start from. Are they up to something in this one? It's what are they up to? So now I jump over that, whether it is or not something. I just go straight to it being something. Right. And if I'm wrong, cool. It's a good bet. And I ain't bad when I lose good bets. If I lose a good bet, it was a good bet. I had reason to bet. So, and then also, Tony, ask Tony Brown if you get a chance to break down the symbolism. Because he's very good at breaking down the images and artistic direction. There's nothing in that image that wasn't designed to be exactly how it is and where it is. Exactly. And so the fact that both of their hands are covering his genitals, that's where the hand was told to be for that particular angle of that particular shot. And out of all the pictures that they took, that's the one that they chose for a reason that they chose it. It's always that detailed. It's always down to that reason. Now, is it consciously being done to say, let's emasculate him? It may or may not have been. Because Dr. Wells says that white supremacy is an anxiety, and it's oftentimes pushed, it's repressed anxiety. And therefore it comes out in their symbolic expressions like the ball games and the guns and stuff like that. So it could be unconscious, but it's there. And so A$AP Rocky could not have been up front, standing next to Rihanna, holding her by the waist and still holding his baby and kissing his baby. He could not have been up front, Rihanna hugging him from the back, him still holding the baby, kissing the baby. Those things could not happen for British Vogue, because what it does is, again, it takes the man from being boy where they need him to be, because he looks like he could be one of her kids in that picture, actually. She's leading him by the hand. She's got an older boy, and now she's got a baby boy, and she got a bun in the oven. Aw, you know, like Queen Mother, Big Mama now, right? Big Mama's cool. Daddy got to be missing, right? And so he's still back there, A$AP Rocky, like in the boy's position, older boy, but boy still, being led by the hand. Is that anything for us to fight about? I wish we wouldn't fight about it. But until we understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it functions, everything else we think we understand will only confuse us. So the fighting is a function of confusing. And the one thing I push back on is measuring a person's level of security or insecurity by how they're responding to this thing. Sometimes, like, people say, you know, are you too sensitive? And I teach the kids, like, if somebody tell you that you're too sensitive, it just means that you're picking up on stuff that other people don't. So don't take it as a negative automatically. Because then you too sensitive. No, I'm not. First thing, well, I ain't sensitive. It's like, no, it's okay. You have sense organs to be sensitive. You know, you think too much. Somebody ever tell you think too much? Or you looking too deeply into something? Watch that person. Because they want you to function less than you can. they might intentionally, unintentionally be trying to get something past you. But that cover, I mean, it's a pure white supremacy. It's their mode of operating. It's just what they do. It ain't nothing for us to fight about. It's something for us. Dr. Wells would say, that's interesting. And she said, go about your business. Analyze it, expect it, and actually I'm happy that they're still functioning in the way that they do, because they usually don't change the way that they do things, which gives us, you know what I mean, ample opportunities to get it. And once you get it, you're no longer impacted by it. Now I can look at it and say, wow, that's a beautiful picture of a beautiful black family on the cover of Vogue, but I see what y'all did there still. You can have both things at the same time.
That was a profound answer.
Yeah, seriously.
That was very nuanced, to the point, and explained it very well.
Well, your opinion too.
Oh, my opinion.
Yeah, man.
Okay, all right. So when I saw it, now I didn't have an opportunity to see it without a bunch of graphs. Someone called it a graph that they did, you know, all markings and pointing this way. Yeah, so I agree with everything that they were saying. In my opinion, definitely, if there is a statue, a very, very large statue in Senegal. Yes. Yeah. So it speaks to what Dr. Menzies was saying, where you have the black man, a very, you know, imposing figure, you know, very strong masculine figure, with the wife holding her in one arm and holding the baby up in the other arm, and actually looking, you know, towards the diaspora, the direction. And I think that's a much more empowering image. But, you know, it even speaks to the state of affairs that we're in right now, where a lot of women have, you know, Dr. Wilson gets into this, you know, with even with careers. I mean, you can look at A$AP Rocky's career and Rihanna's career. It's very, very similar to, I mean, she's a mega star, and he's had some success, you know. Some people, you know, he's not like unsuccessful, but definitely not to her degree of being of superstardom. And it kind of also speaks to, you know, the whole thing of a lot of black women going to school and getting degrees, getting jobs, advancing into the professional sphere, and brothers being, you know, unemployed or underemployed. And that really does take it makes a profound effect on a brother's psychology as well too, to not be able to seemingly match up with their woman. And yeah, so I thought about that when I saw it. But overall, I definitely want to agree with everything that Dr. Menzies said. I thought that was an excellent answer.
Just real quick, because I know we got to close, but see, think about this, somewhere in London, I'm assuming that's where British Vogue is published, they created a cover that here in Black Washington DC at a Black bookstore, we talking about it. And I think that's what you said, what are they up to next?
What are they up to now?
Right, you know, and I think that, you know, I hope that when we talk about the cover of Vogue, or if we talk about a movie or from the Woman King, that we do it in the context of white supremacy. To me, you can't analyze what's going on with us without putting it in that context, you know. So, you know, my friend Harry Allen, a Public Enemy, he always says, you know, we always ask, and you know, Jeff and I, we always ask, you know, come here and lecture Dr. Menzies about whether or not there's racism in education or racism in music or racism in politics. And Harry always says what we should ask is whether or not there's, you know, education in racism. Is there, you know, politics in racism? Is it sex in racism? We should see it as the system that we're operating under. So.
I will let, we have one brother in the back who has a question. I will let you have the last question. Oh, someone had it? Oh, did you have whoever has a question can ask that question, and these will be the last questions of the night.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, happy 22nd, happy 22 is 202. I mean, 122nd, actually. All right, anyway, back to the point. I was noticing something in these past two movies. The movie with the Black Panther 2, right? And then the one with the Black Queens.
Woman King.
That was still putting on the same point he just put on in his question. Is that they're pulling away from like the black man having the power and yes, the black strong man, and they're pulling on to like, no, it's not the black man, it's the black woman, but they're pulling away from the strength is the unity and what we have as a system. And how do we use that using their supremacy mindset and viewpoint, and how we use that into our understanding, rather than take our time and energy and talk about what they are doing and what they are portraying, but how can we use our energy, what we have, what we're teaching, what our resources are, and how can we manifest that into what we want in the future on this 22nd month that they're doing.
So quickly, I would add one more movie to that list because I saw it like this time last year. I said, oh shoot, they got 3 movies coming up in 2022 that's designed to some degree emasculate manhood. One was Till, the movie about Emmett Till. I didn't see it either. I don't watch I stayed from those movies. Till, Woman King, and Wakanda Forever. Those 3 I said are 3 movies this year, 2022, that they are launching to do something against manhood, black manhood specifically. Till was killing before he grew, right? And it shows the strength in his mother to have the open casket and things like that, just because that's what that story is. They even blame his uncle for giving him away when the white supremacists came to the door. I remember watching the documentary where they actually had footage of his uncle talking about when the white man came to their door that night, and his uncle was like, yeah, his prayer was, I hope that they bring him back. But his mission was to save the rest of these black boys in his house, because if I don't give them this one, they take it all. And somebody called him weak for that. And I said, nah, that's strength like you would never know, right? To be able to make that decision of, I got to protect. Remember, manhood's protection and making tough decisions. So I saw all 3 of those movies in that same vein. And unfortunately, to your point of what do we do, how do we take what we know and, as opposed to spending our energy talking about them, is that I think that we haven't analyzed what they come with enough, and enough of us to even understand. So let's say, for example, we could draft up a blueprint right now like Amos Wilson did. He literally gave his life to Blueprint for Black Power. But he handed that manuscript over to I'm gonna block my brother's name. His publisher, his partner,
Africa World Press.
Yeah. What's my brother's name?
Third
It was
World?
Africa.
Nah, it was
It was his own
African World
Yeah.
Systems.
Sabadu. The brother Sabadu has been his partner through all of his publications. He's been there recording his lectures. and transcribing them for him. He's the one that's editing them and reissuing his book. So Salvadore's been there with Amos Wilson since day one. So we were in conversation one night, and Salvador told me about how Blueprint for Black Power came through. And he said that Amos Wilson wrote that manuscript, handed it to him, and in a matter of days, Dr. Wilson was dead. He never saw it published. He literally gave his life to that book. And so that blueprint is there, but guess how many people actually have read that? Fewer than that number have actually tried to implement it. And so what I'm saying is that we can go hard and start trying to do these things, but if we don't have a critical mass yet that understands that there's even something to be done, you know, we're likely to have Blueprint of Black Power on the bookshelf collecting dust so people could have it on their bookshelf. But we still aren't fully capable of implementing it yet. Because we got to understand the system works hard to maintain itself. And the number one way that it maintains itself is to keep us confused about what it actually is and how it functions. And so if we can't get that part of it, if we can't separate enough of us from its influence to that degree, then we still got work to do on that front, brother. But I feel you. So I would say those of us that do know how, like Highly Green, he set up the bookstore, he makes the movies that he does. Dr. Wimbush does all the work that he does. And so we're continuing to reach out and touch people, and eventually it'll be a critical mass of us to where it's going to topple by itself. It's that concept of build, destroy that I think about when you're talking. Because you got a certain amount of energy. And so you can use that energy to build, or you can use that energy to destroy. And my vibe is that since it's the same energy, and if you go against something, then something is going against you. So let's take that energy and go for something. What's it for? Let's go for building this. And by virtue of the fact that we're taking the energy from what we want to destroy, it's going to topple on its own once we get focused on building here. But again, if we don't even understand that, we can't do it yet. Listen.
Ashe, ashe. So let's clap it up for all our guests and clap it up for yourselves. Thank you everyone for being here. We went a little bit longer than I even thought, to be honest. Yeah, I apologize for keeping you breathless, but I think, sometimes when it starts slow, but a faucet, once that water starts flowing, it comes out. So we had to get all of this out, and it's documented for those who weren't here. Thank you all for coming here. And, you don't actually have to go home or get out of here. We're still open, especially the cafe, but you can go home and get out of here if you need to. But the book is for sale. We are here. There's still food for a little while longer. So yeah, a very little while longer. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. All right, brother. Hey, sorry for keeping you on so much.